Oh, hey. Ugh. Whew. Well, it'll be no surprise to anyone that knows me that I am not a morning person. In fact, some mornings when I wake up, I don't even feel like a person. And it's an awful way to start the day. It taints the entire day. My thoughts are sometimes negative and self-centered, just around sort of why I'm not a good person or why this and why that. And in the book, The Power of Meaning by Emily Esfahani-Smith, I learned about the Greek hero Sisyphus, who was condemned by the gods to roll a boulder up a mountain only to have it knocked down for eternity. So his entire life, or eternity, is spent rolling this boulder up only to have it knocked down. And on mornings I wake up feeling like that, I really relate to that. I really relate to that feeling of monotony and just the sort of ongoing grinding nature of life. And I've always been interested in philosophy. I've always read about it and always just sort of been drawn to it. But there's sort of a dark side to some of these philosophies that one can get lost in and really sort of feel like there is no point to anything. I'd like to read a quote from a popular philosopher, Will Durant, who writes, "Astronomers have told us that human affairs constitute but a moment in the trajectory of a star. Geologists have told us that civilization is but a precarious interlude between ice ages. Biologists have told us that all life is war, a struggle for existence among individuals, groups, nations, alliances, and species. Historians have told us that progress is delusion, whose glory ends in inevitable decay. Psychologists have told us that the will and the self are helpless instruments of heredity and environment, and that the once incorruptible soul is but a transient incandescence of the brain. Philosophers, meanwhile, have their emphasis on reasoning their way to the truth, have reasoned their way to the truth that life is meaningless. Life has become, in that total perspective which is philosophy, a fitful pollutation of human insects on the earth, a planetary eczema that may soon be cured." So yikes, pretty dark. I also learned about Leo Tolstoy, who had every measure of success in his day, everything that you'd think you'd need to be happy, but was still depressed. Or Albert Camus, who explored the concept of life's central questions, to which he said, it's pretty much a matter of whether or not you want to go on, whether or not you want to keep living. So there's definitely a sort of negative interpretation to a lot of these philosophies. But I'd like to explore how, using the pillar of purpose, we can use philosophy to add meaning to our lives and give our lives a sense of value and meaning both personally and to our community. In Esfahani-Smith's book, I learned about the concept of eudaimonia, or it's often translated as human flourishing, and it sort of stands in contrast to hedonia, which is sometimes translated as happiness or pleasure. The concept of eudaimonia is about doing good and being good, as opposed to just experiencing pleasure. It's one thing to contemplate these concepts, it's another to apply these sort of philosophical principles to our lives. And using the pillar of purpose, I'd sort of like to explore how we can do that. Esfahani-Smith says that purpose is less about what you want and more about what you give. And she talks about the philosopher Immanuel Kant, who says that we have a moral obligation to contribute to our society. In other words, it's on us to use our strengths to help others. She also referenced this study they did with elderly people about simply giving them houseplants and how much that improved their health. So I'd like to talk about what we can do with some of these philosophies to sort of add meaning to our lives. Oftentimes when I wake up in this sort of crabby day, I can spin all of these things about what's wrong with my life, and I can look around my apartment and see just maybe a mess that I didn't make. I'm going over here to my kitchen and seeing, just a bunch of dirty dishes that I didn't leave. And I think I love in week 8, my classmate Millie had a wonderful quote. She said, "I believe part of what makes humans so special is that we created value that doesn't ensure our survival." In other words, we found these values that aren't necessarily going to directly benefit us. So why would this make us feel better? Why would I do these dishes when it's not going to directly impact me? Well, I think it is such that the nature of human beings is being helpful to others feels good. And it's that crazy paradox of doing the thing I don't want to do in the interest of feeling better. So it's sort of a weird paradox in that we want something that we really can't attain by chasing it. And Esfahani Smith explores that concept brilliantly in her book. I think it may seem silly to think about the dishes as giving purpose to my life, but to me, anything that gives me a sense of accomplishment, anything that makes me feel that I'm contributing to the world at large, is a gain for me. And I've had this so often in my life where I'm resistant to helping someone, and the minute I do, I walk away from the interaction feeling so much better. So thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, Professor Joe, for a wonderful term. I've gotten so much out of class. It's the type of class where I've been thinking about these concepts outside of class, which to me is always a good sign. So I'm going to go about my day one thing at a time, one dish at a time, and that's where I'm going to get purpose today. Thanks, guys.